Hello and welcome to the coronavirus lockdown live stream, the show that brings welcome levity to the end of the world, lifting the spirits of many of you currently in self-isolation. Is anyone still in self-isolation? By infecting as many as possible with comfort and distraction as what is self-evidently the apocalypse unfolds. How on earth is everyone doing? Let's have a quick look at what's happening with the comments. Gabrielle Spedding says, still waiting for the last hour of the last day before Armageddon comes. Debbie Aquino says, good evening, everyone. Hope all is well in your area. Joelle Brown is taunting us, trying to make us jealous over the drink that she has, that she is imbibing. Andre David Tanana says, good morning from Luton, UK. Bill Pimo says, well, hello there. Nesbo9 over on Twitch says, good morning, lockdown live stream. Not sure whether that's how he's saying it. By the way, a word on Twitch. Obviously, when I started the lockdown live stream, I was somewhat hindered by the fact that I was experiencing the beginnings of a ban from live streaming on YouTube, which many of you will know about. And my solution was to stream simultaneously on Facebook and Twitch. The YouTube ban ends, let's see, not tomorrow, but the day after, meaning that Saturday's lockdown live stream can be on YouTube. So the lockdown live stream gets upgraded to my YouTube channel. In a way, I'm kind of dreading it because it means that what is already quite a frantic pace of comments will just get even crazier. But I still think it's worthwhile making the lockdown live stream easier to access. I can only, with my current plan, stream on 2 services simultaneously. So that means that either Facebook or Twitch has to go in favor of YouTube. And I think I'm going to go with losing Twitch. But at least, again, the whole point of getting Twitch, I guess opening the Twitch account, which will remain, by the way, in case I need it. The whole point of opening the Twitch account was so that people didn't feel like they had to deal with Facebook. You know, many people have understandable concerns about Facebook. So those people can just hop on the YouTube channel and hopefully just leave comments in the live chat as they would do on Twitch. So you just reminded me there, Nesbo9, about that. So we bid a fond farewell to Twitch in this 30th of lockdown live streams. Naita Esther is saying hello from Chile. So that's fantastic. Chile, where they actually display the flags of the country in kingdom halls on a certain day of, is it multiple days of the year? It's at least one day of the year they actually are required by the government to prominently display the flag at the kingdom halls, and they do. So make of that what you will. Mark Sawyer is saying hello. Alicia Giordano, our ever-present commenter, says hello, everyone. 2:30 a.m. here in Jersey. How are you all? Alicia, amazing. A fantastic loyalty from you there, and I hope you're doing well there in New Jersey. Eric Larson says, I am here to absorb this live stream into every cell in my body. Yes, quoting there from the almost certainly inebriated Tony Morris in his most recent morning worship video, which obviously, if you've seen my latest video, you'll know what I think about it. Quite an extraordinary piece of propaganda there, fixating on the visage of a girl sleeping under a tree with a leopard above her. Actually, it was a leopard, I've been told. So a panther is a type of leopard. I just think if you're going to see that particular animal in the wild, you'd say it's a panther rather than it's a leopard, because a leopard, well, I won't go into all that. but so I'm having this problem with my audio, which I'm going to probably experience throughout the live stream, and it just manifested itself then. I don't know whether you guys missed anything of what I was saying, but hopefully I fixed it. Although the sound won't be as good now. Paige Lundy says, hey everyone. Hi Paige. Oh gosh, more comments coming in. Ronnie says, good morning from the United States. Hello, Ronnie. Kevin is hailing from the UK. Annika P thinks that we are all lovely people. Well, isn't that sweet? Hopefully most of us are lovely people, but you just never know. I'm not going to try pronouncing the name, but they are calling in, or they are watching from Ukraine, which is wonderful, winking at us no less from that particular country. Paige Lundy says, my whole life is self-isolation. That sounds rather mournful, Paige. But yeah, I don't know how many still are in actual lockdown in terms of having to self-isolate at home. I can only imagine that to some degree that's still happening. Obviously here in Croatia, we're long past that. Croatia fared quite well in terms of the rate of infections and dealing with the curve and that sort of thing. I'd be interested to know if anyone wants to share in the comments whether you are still in an actual lockdown situation where you are limited in the extent you can leave home. Rianne says, hello and good morning, apostate gang. Lovely to see you, Rianne. Alicia over there in New Jersey says, yes, I'm tired too, but still up drinking coffee. Coffee will get you through most situations where there is an element of sleep deprivation, I find. So lots of lovely comments. Again, I apologize about my audio. I'm going to try and fix this at various points. For some reason, so what you're hearing now is not coming from this, basically. It's coming from my laptop. But during the course of the live stream, I will try to fix it. Allow me to read, if I may, from Take Back Your Life, Recovering from Cults and Abusive Relationships by Yanya Lalich and Madeline Tobias. We were dealing with grief and mourning in our last show, going through a list, no less, of various elements of grief and mourning. By the way, if I seem distracted, it's because there's a cat in the bunker. I thought I'd bring Olivia into the bunker, but she's a little bit hyperactive at the moment. If she comes near my desk and I'm able to grab her, then this will obviously become a cat video and therefore easier to monetize. So yesterday, in the last show, we were dealing with two elements of grief and mourning, namely loss of the group and loss of time. We're now going to be dealing firstly with loss of innocence. Cult involvement tends to shake your basic assumptions about people and the world. Before your involvement, you may have learned and believed such things as, the world is a safe place, be nice to people and they will be nice to you, or life is fair and just. Cult involvement may have shown you quite the opposite of what you always believed about how people operate in the world. Depending on the group, your proximity to the leader, and the type of abuse, exploitation, and/or illegal activity that went on, you may have witnessed or participated in an array of regrettable or perverse acts. Prior to life in the cult, you may not have realized that human beings could behave so single-mindedly, selfishly, and in some cases, destructively. I think that applies with Jehovah's Witnesses when it comes to the way witnesses are required to shun. You know, that's something that we all, depending on how long we spent in the witnesses, we all spent some time shunning people, didn't we? It is helpful to come to terms with this realization and balance it with a healthy skepticism. The world is neither all good nor all bad, and most people are a mixture of both. If you can skeptically and honestly evaluate your cult experience, you will have the tools you need to make reasonable and productive decisions about your present and your future. Loss of meaning. As a fly buzzes round irritatingly. I'm beset by creatures today, viewers. In the bunker, I have a cat and I have a fly. Thankfully, not a green rose chafer beetle. Loss of meaning. In cults, the love of God or high ideals, the desire for self-improvement, or the wish to help humankind and society are twisted and used to influence, control, or exploit devoted believers. For example, followers may be skillfully manipulated into believing they have had genuine spiritual or psychic experiences, or that they have found the truth, the one path to freedom or salvation. Frequently, it is difficult to determine which experiences were real and which were orchestrated by the cult. Sometimes when devotees learn that their cherished experiences were based on deception or manipulation, they begin to doubt their very core. When they learn, for example, that they devoted their time, money, and skills to support a corrupt leader, they feel burned, betrayed, and unwilling to believe again in anything. For many, the capacity to trust that special part of themselves, the altruistic, loving, and optimistic core, is shattered, sometimes forever. This part is often the last to heal. Redefining beliefs, values, and spirituality or personal philosophy is a process that takes time and determination. Some former members resume their pre-cult beliefs or return to the religion or worldview of their upbringing, while others develop a deep cynicism and distrust for any belief system whatsoever. Those who do not take the time to educate themselves about cults and social psychological influences or persuasion techniques remain vulnerable to ever-present recruiters and scam artists of all types, and in the end may wander from group to group looking for the right path to fulfill their spiritual or philosophical needs. This issue of beliefs is central to cult involvement and post-cult recovery. Loss of family. The loss of family and loved ones can be a double whammy. Cult members may lose their pre-cult family and friends, as well as the family and friendships they developed in the cult. Reconnecting with people who were outside the cult is not always possible, though most former members make efforts to do so. Sometimes too much water has gone under the bridge and the other person has no desire to re-establish the relationship. Old friends may have relocated, are too far away, or cannot be found. Certain important people or relatives may have died. For long-term cult members estranged from their families, the loss of the opportunity to reconcile or say goodbye to a loved one can be remarkably painful. Those who stay in a group for any length of time usually come to regard their fellow members as family. Often the isolation of cult life engenders that kind of bonding, mutual suffering, and the forced sharing of private thoughts that some cults require of their members tends to establish and reinforce illusions of intimacy and closeness. For those who were born or raised in a cult or married into one, various relatives may still be devoted members. For them, leaving the group can mean losing relatives, friends, and all relational ties. No doubt loss of family is a loss when it comes to Jehovah's Witnesses, but those were very interesting thoughts. And as Olivia goes on the rampage, knocking over C-3PO, as I look at her, hang on, let me see if we can bring her on. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. No, she's crazy, crazy, crazy cat. And Alicia's comment was on the screen all the way along. Alicia getting huge exposure there. Let's bring in our green room. We have Naomi and we have Sasha.
Hello.
Hey, everyone.
How's it going?
How are you doing?
Good. Can you hear me this time?
Yes.
Oh, good. How are you?
Yeah.
Yes. Not bad. Can you guys say things while I get a new microphone?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, think of the power we've got going now, Naomi. What can we say while he can't hit the audio mute button?
Well, I mean, we could probably muster up a few insults, but I'm not feeling creative.
No, we want to be back here for another time. So, yes, we're not going to.
That's right.
So how's life in Sydney going, Naomi?
Well, Sasha, thank you for asking. It's going well. I feel like it's kind of almost back to normal. I went to the supermarket and the roads are full and the shops are full. So it feels very much like things are heading back to normality. And I saw that New Zealand is up to level 1, isn't it? So
Yeah.
they're all free to roam around, except out of the country or in and out of the country.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it, the progress? I think a lot of people think that it's never really even happened. We're just back to normality. And I hope we don't forget that it did happen, and this is still a very clear and present threat if people aren't careful.
But isn't it funny how quickly you can forget? Like, periodically, I have forgotten, I have to say, even as I'm walking through like streets, because I'm seeing a lot less masks than there had been previously. So it is something you have to really remind yourself of. Otherwise, you can just forget the whole thing happened. Well, not fully, but
no, that's a good point. Yeah.
Welcome back.
I would pretend that I know what you were saying. I think the gist of it was. Do I sound better, by the way? Is this an improvement?
Yeah,
much better.
It is.
The voice of an angel is returned.
Yeah.
I think the gist of it was that there is still, people are still affected by coronavirus. Is that the gist of it, really?
Yes.
Yeah, but the need for caution. But certainly, as you said, things are starting to open up and life is getting back to some semblance of normality. Well, when it comes to the coronavirus issue, at least. And there's tends to be a feeling of optimism in the air in many places, businesses that I interact with and so on. There tends to be a bit of a positivity. I mean, people are still cautious because, of course, the financial impact is yet to be fully seen, particularly when all of the government incentives and government securities are lifted or government payments are lifted come September in Australia. People will be very unsure of what happens. But, yeah, generally.
Excellent. By the way, nice to see Javier in the comments.
You're joining us, Javi?
If you want to, he has a link. He has a link. But we shall see. And we also have a certain Deanna Evans who was horizontal and unconscious when I came down to the bunker, cat in hand. I'm still trying to figure out how to grab the thing. It's currently playing with a crayon. I don't know even why there is a crayon. Got it. So here is.
Oh my God!
Here is Olivia. So.
Oh.
Hey, gorgeous!
Ridiculously cute.
There's the thumbnail.
There's the thumbnail.
Hey, Olivia. Oh, she's beautiful. How old is she now, Lloyd?
I have no idea. We literally. So Olivia was part of a batch of kittens that were born, I think, in a barn next door to us, and the neighbour just said, "Do you want a cat? We've got like 3," and so we kind of discussed it because it's been for a while now. Diana and Jessica have been saying, "Oh, we'd really like a cat," and I finally relented and said, "Yeah, why not?" I kind of appreciate having creatures around. I think they're a nice kind of distraction. I think from the mundanity of life.
They are
really beautiful.
So
if she was born in a barn in a manger, is she a Jesus cat?
I think so. I think so. I think Olivia's pseudonym can be Jesus cat. Yeah.
Olive, like an olive branch.
Oh, I like that.
One might say. So there we have Olivia's first appearance on the John Caesars channel. She's currently, I'll let you eat those. She's eating crumbs off her plate from yesterday. So yes, if Javier wants to join, Diana probably will almost certainly not be joining. That's Olivia making noises. Mistake to put a cat on a table in a studio.
Just picture.
Eric Larson says Arthur is missing out. Arthur has a link, but as we all know, he has a very busy social life. Sometimes he has to leave the live stream, mid-live stream, to keep up with the frantic demands that are made of him. So goodness knows what he's doing at this precise moment.
We shouldn't ask. Yes, a little bit like Covert. You know, they're involved with international man of mystery exploits.
If he comes on looking a bit dishevelled in his smoking jacket, his chest bared, there'll be a clue. But you know, who knows?
We can run it, can't we? We can give us something to look forward to.
But rather than thinking about Arthur's hectic social life and private life, perhaps, I think what we need at this point in the lockdown live stream is a bit of sophistication, a little bit of culture, and a little bit of refinement, and that comes in the form of Sasha's Poetry Corner.
So
Well, as we know, we get a lot of people contribute to our show with comments at the bottom of the live stream, or they send poems in to us. And so this one was actually sent in by a dear friend of the show. I'll read it exactly as he's written it. So yeah, he'll send it. It's a tremendous friend of ours from the United States. Stuck in my big house trying to decide if it's safe now outside or should I just hide? Have all the bad people finished misbehaving, or are they ready to yell at me with nasty signs a waving? I told them I would send in the bigly military people so that I could waddle over to that church, that one with the steeple, to hold up this book with a lot of big pages that many people have held to for plenty of ages. I've never read it myself, if truth be told. In fact, I've never been to church since I was 10 years old. But I know that if I want to stay living in this house, I've got to appeal to those Christians to help me and my spouse. Because without the religious right, I've got not a chance. For they're the ones that control my very circumstance. Yet they have no idea that in God I don't believe. Because of the way I've been living, he would be so aggrieved. But whatever, as long as I say, make America great, those religious suckers will vote for me because they conflate my message and my speech as a sent from God above. Yet the reality is the only being that I love is me, myself alone, because I'm the chosen one. So now leave me alone or I'll call for more guns.
Oh, poignant and ponderous. I think that one was.
He never told me his name when he sent it in. He just signed off in like massive big marker pen, and he just wrote DJ. But I don't really know who that was.
I know a president who likes to sign things off in big marker pen.
Well, it is very big, large font, so it's quite likely. We've just lost half our viewership. I'm sorry, Lloyd.
So do you have your own poem to read?
No, that was it.
I don't know. Standards are slipping, viewers. On the coronavirus lockdown live stream, Sasha is now just reading other people's poems and not his own.
I may have ghost written that one for
Kimmy would at least come up with a limerick. You know, I hate to labour the point, but you know, bit more research, a bit more preparation, maybe. Sasha.
Yeah. I stand corrected.
No, it's okay. We all deserve a day off every now and then, so that's fine. And
I quite liked Olivia's contribution throughout it.
It was brilliant.
Yeah, I think
you hear it meowing quite loudly. Yeah. I think she's saying, "Why am I trapped in a bunker?" Like half an hour ago, I was perfectly content in a nice, comfortable apartment with lots of sofas, and now here I am in a strange environment. So
that we know it.
By the way, as I just a quick answer to. Okay, so Javier says, "Oh, for crying out loud! It's not enough you parade adorable kids for likes. Now you're flaunting kittens. I thought you were a professional. I am a professional, Javier. And in case you haven't noticed, in order to be successful on YouTube, you need to do completely mind-numbing things like dangle kittens or take things out of boxes or put on makeup. And so for the success of the lockdown live stream, this has to be a cat video or a makeup video or an unboxing video. And this one, as you may have noticed, is a cat video.
Yeah, I think it's right. It's right. Sorry, go.
No. Interesting what you're saying too about, of course, YouTube's dominated by unboxing videos and those sorts of things. I was listening to a couple of people in the advertising and marketing industry talk on a podcast this week. They were saying that there's been a serious decline in that because people have understandably recognized that in tough financial times and during this epidemic or pandemic, that it's kind of a little bit gauche to be promoting items of commercialism when people are doing it tough. So yes, we're going to probably get a resurgence back that the Instagram influencers and YouTube influencers won't be as vocal or as noticed.
Joel Brown says Arthur is probably jamming with his new band. I really hope he isn't moonlighting in that grotesque way, Joel. I mean, having made his name on the lockdown live stream, it would be very unfortunate if he were to exploit his newfound fame in other areas to the expense of the show. Something to think about. I think words need to be had behind the scenes.
Well, not every band's got an air piano, so and probably need them.
We've actually had air keyboard, air drums, and air guitar. He can play all of them. He's very versatile when it comes to imaginary instruments.
Yes, he was even able to replicate the guitar face during the middle of that air guitar.
I think that the guitar face is transferable to various situations, to be honest.
It's well known that's
Without dwelling on that too much, it would be nice if we could have a little bit of intellectualism injected, perhaps even some comedy in the form of Naomi's Bible box.
Right.
Naomi's Bible box.
It gets me every time. So today, the show is Farmer Wants a Wife, the Dead Husband's Mother edition. I don't know if everyone gets this show in their countries, but this is a show that brings city girls together and they compete for the love of one hunky farm boy. And the hopeful single farmer, he then searches for the one or the life partner that he can share his heart and his land with. And so the question is, will Prince Farming find his perfect match? So this episode, Bo, who's 58, he owns a huge property and he has everything he needs except for a wife. And while many women have presented himself to Bo, there's only ever been one woman that's caught his eye, and that is Ruth, who's 24. So she was introduced to Bo out in the field while she was helping herself to his crop. Specifically, she was eating an ear of his corn. Having heard about her entrepreneurial spirit, Bo always left a couple of ears behind for her to retrieve each week so he could see her regularly. Now, in the backstory footage, we get to find out that Ruth's mother-in-law is quite keen for her to find a new husband after her son, who's Ruth's husband, tragically died at the end of the last season in mysterious circumstances, along with his brother and father. So we don't know what happened there, but all we do know is that Ruth's mother-in-law knows the way to the farmer's heart is through his haystack. So she actually encourages Ruth to sneak into his bedroom late at night and lay next to Bo. And while we're not sure exactly what happened that night, what we do know is that they appeared as an engaged couple the next morning. And some quotes from the couple, the happy couple. Bo said, I had a big night, and all I know is I woke up and she was in my bed. And if that isn't a marriage proposal, I don't know what is. Ruth said, I always thought love came from the heart, but it turns out it can come from an ear as well. So that was a nice little one. And Ruth's mother-in-law said, I hope there's a spare room in it for me. So that was the episode of Farmer Wants a Wife, the dead mother of tradition.
I would greenlight that episode. That sounds fascinating.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
We just don't know how to do romance anymore. I mean, this is the best way.
Wow. Yeah.
I'm
I've
actually
got to say it.
Sorry, go on, Sasha.
I'm going to say the elements of that story were a little corny. Although you were able to pull it through,
there we go.
And you amazed us in the end. So it's all good. Yeah.
Oh, you just got to peel it back a bit before you can get to the love story in there.
I'm having a delivery of coffee. Deanna wants to appear on camera, apparently. Does she? Can she be persuaded?
But don't mind me,
What? Come and say hello.
He's saying no, really.
Come and say hello.
No, seriously.
You're going to hear another hell no.
No. I'll spare the audience of the horror.
Yeah, a little bit of exchanges here in the bunker, viewers. I don't want to. I just want to actually, while you were speaking about Ruth and Naomi, it reminded me of something that I read in a book on the Bible.
Oh, okay.
And I'm wondering whether I can find it kind of quickly enough.
It's not a bright yellow hardcovered book called My Book of Bible Stories.
It's this book, God and Sex, by Michael Coogan. It's actually a really interesting book because it kind of breaks down all of the references to sex in the Bible. And one of the points it makes is about feet and about how basically when it's referring to feet, when it's referring to feet, it's basically a euphemism for they got down, and that's part of the story. I think.
Yeah, she lay at his feet. You're right.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a euphemism for they had sex.
Lay at his feet. Yes.
I'm trying to kind of quickly find it, but I can't. But yeah, that was something that kind of came up in the book, and I thought that's something that you're just not going to hear because it's a weird detail to include, isn't it?
It is.
What's the significance of feet until you realize that there's coding in there. There's kind of language to express to people who are familiar with these words. All right, so okay. But of course, because because alternative words were used other than they had sex, now organizations like Watchtower are able to kind of gloss over all of those details and that kind of thing and present it as, she was laying at his feet.
Yeah.
So are we going to say then that Boaz had the original foot fetish? I mean, the Bible seems to indicate,
Or maybe there is a correlation between foot size and because that's a thing, isn't it? I mean, that could have started in the Bible.
She was just checking out the size of his feet before she decided any further. I mean,
did not plan the lockdown live stream to go in this direction, to be honest with you.
But you do touch on an interesting point, and I'm sure that book touches on it too, that there are so many things in the Bible that are discussed quite openly that so-called Christianity or believers have in years past found taboo. I mean, you think about sections in the Bible that speak about those who are sex workers. That was quite a common thing in the Bible. And yet Christianity or religion made something like that taboo in years later. So the Bible it addressed even righteous people spending time like that. So it's not exactly this good book full of all so-called modern moral stories.
No, not at all.
Naomi,
Yep.
We have had a request as I try and beat a fly to death. No. We have had a request from Bill the Pimo who says, if Naomi does one of these in full Bible agony on character, I will die of happiness. What do you say to that?
I'll try it for next week. I'll give that a shot, but that might be torture for everybody else. I just don't know.
Speaking of
I'll give it a
torture,
go, though.
bludgeon a fly to death as we speak. But yeah, something to think about there, Naomi.
Yeah,
yeah, definitely. And we have a few other comments. Yeah, I'm afraid, Rianne, that Deanna beat a hasty retreat. She doesn't really like being on camera, but hopefully we can put her on the show. She does actually listen to the lockdown live streams almost religiously, which is more than can be said for most of my videos.
It's also an interesting use of the word religiously, but all right. Yeah.
So yeah, Eric Larson says, yeah, JWs think nothing naughty was happening there. Yeah, I think that, look, the JW version of the Bible is extremely watered down and pretending that everything was above board. Yeah. You know, even excuses are even made for, you know, Rahab, the story of Rahab and Jericho. You know, we're talking about a prostitute and, the men went to visit. Oh, let's conveniently choose this particular house to visit, and this particular lady of a certain profession. Nothing untoward happening here. So yeah, it's all very glossed over, all of the kind of seedier parts.
Yeah, and yet the stuff that should be drawn to attention, for example, as we know, Lot and his daughters, and that totally inappropriate conduct that took place, is he's still held up as a good old friend of God and totally righteous. No problems here.
Or like violence, you kind of get, blow by blow, if you like, accounts of real violent action, and that's all okay. But we don't want to talk about people's feet. God forbid.
Manuk, speaking of feet, says, "What about the Mary Magdalena who washed Jesus' feet?" Ooh. I don't think every reference to feet in the Bible is euphemistic. I think that sometimes it literally does mean feet, but if it's worked into the story and there's no obvious meaning other than, you know, they got down, then probably it was that they got down.
How much better would it be if you just did a find and replace in the Bible for every time a foot is mentioned, that it's some phallic reference? That's so great.
Yeah. Nesbo9 says, watched how it is dumbing everything down. No arguments there. Certainly in the awful JW broadcasting. I'm grateful, actually, because as you probably will know, there's only, I think, is it 9 or 10 broadcasting episodes? Sorry, I think 9 per year. So there is no JW broadcasting for June. So I get a month off, which I would usually be spending working on the convention rebuttals, because usually by around May, the videos for the convention have already been leaked. This year, they haven't been leaked, so I'm going to have to comment on them when everyone else sees them, which will be July, August. So I get a proper month off in terms of cult propaganda. Although, did you see one of the latest videos on the Hospital Liaison Committee? That's going to be my next upload. A video basically praising the Hospital Liaison Committee, and they actually managed to rope in a couple of apparently non-Jehovah's Witness doctors to say favorable things on camera. And I strongly suspect that these are medical professionals who don't understand how their words are being used and in what context and what the full implications of the blood teaching are. So I think that's going to have to be my next upload.
Absolutely. Or it'll be medical professionals who don't necessarily deal with or work with that particular field or work with blood. As we know, the society they try and appeal to credibility. It's somebody basically wearing the proverbial white coat, but they might not necessarily actually specifically deal in that field. We've seen so many quotes back in the old publications where they would bring up I don't know, somebody who deals in an optometrist to talk about something to do with the heart. It's not their field, it's not their place, but they're trying to make it sound like, oh, we've got a scientician to help us out.
A scientician?
Yeah, you haven't heard that word before?
I must be very illiterate.
Yeah, it's used in the skeptic field to talk about basically the pretend
Oh,
blank coat
right. Oh,
scenario.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So it is actually a thing.
Yeah.
Lloyd,
So,
you
yeah.
know, you make such sacrifice to have to look and read all of that all the time and comment on it. I think, you know, nothing says take it for the team more than you having to do. You probably look at more of the content than proper Jehovah's Witnesses do.
Well,
Yeah.
it's kind of my job.
Yeah.
It would be, I can't imagine doing it if it wasn't my job. So,
No.
you know, I'm in a very fortunate situation where over many years I've kind of grown my YouTube channel. And frankly, it's Patreon that's changed everything. So that now it's actually my job to stay on top of these things. So that puts a slightly different emphasis, that puts a slightly different flavor on when a video comes out. I would probably ordinarily not want to watch it. And I do find it very triggering at times to watch this stuff unfiltered. But I know what the end goal is, and I know that hopefully because of watching it, the end product will be a rebuttal that will basically render it inert. In other words, people will be able to see it properly contextualized and realize how manipulative it is. So, but no, it's because of my patrons that I'm able to do it, definitely.
And have you noticed any difference in your response over the years, like how you're triggered or how you feel when you watch it?
I think it's very interesting for me to look back on my career as an activist and see the ways I've changed and the way I respond to things. I guess I'm triggered as much as I was to begin with. I still find, like, for example, when they're dealing with the hospital liaison committee and they're pretending that these men are all about helping the patient. Oh, we're just there to help out in times of need. No, you're there to intimidate Jehovah's Witnesses into martyring themselves if that's what's called for. So to see the disingenuous way this is kind of portrayed is every bit as infuriating as it would have been at the beginning of my rebuttals. I started doing the rebuttals in kind of 2014 when the JW broadcasting began. But what has changed is I've noticed that, and you'll see this if you watch my earliest rebuttals, I think to begin with, it was very much kind of comedy. It was just laughing at this stuff. And I think that there's more comedy. Like I do little skits in some of my earliest ones where I'd kind of do little conversations, and this is basically what they're saying. And I don't do those skits as much now. I think the kind of overall tone of my rebuttals has changed, not necessarily for the better. It's just that I can't keep doing the same thing over and over again. I've got to adapt. I've got to, find a different way of managing my response rather than just kind of formulaically doing the same thing for years and years,
For sure.
I think that's healthy too, though, Lloyd, the way that we run that journey. It's a little bit like the grief cycle when we go through these things. And when we initially wake up from a religious indoctrination, whatever indoctrination it is, we go through, obviously, the anger stage first. And a lot of activists and a lot of those who help with on podcasts and so forth, and some of the characters who work on the atheist experience and so on have said similarly that you go through that initial burst of anger. I've been lied to, how, this organization's manipulated me. And then you go through that stage of almost indifference and contempt and sort of like meh at the stupidity of the religious beliefs or the things that used to hold us captive. And then sometimes we swing back to a feeling of surprise that we were ever held captive. So the cycle is quite real. But Naomi, you made a good point too. You're asking about analysing certain things in the Bible and the Watchtower organisation and their material. I think we know more now that we've left as non-believers or as people who have left the faith or left the religion or wherever we are on our own faith journey. We know more about our religion than we did when we were in. We know more about the Bible than we did when we were in.
It's weird, isn't it? But I think that's probably right. And I think one of the things that you were saying there about just moving on from it is that I found, because it was a long time ago that I left, and I went through that stage of anger, and then it went into getting on with things. But then there was a certain point where you're just like, actually, when you look back, and then you think people are still in there, people that you love are still in there, I think that reinvigorates a little bit of something, of the emotion again, because that's the bit that I think you do really well, Lloyd, is how do you encourage people to think outside of that? That makes a sort of difference.
Thank you. Yeah. A few comments. Lip Lock to No More says, I actually worry about you watching it on our behalf. Well, don't worry. Don't worry. I mean, it's very sweet of you to say that, but I guess to some degree you develop a thick skin. It does affect me, but probably not in the same way as it would affect other people. There is the urge to throw things at the screen, but it's tempered, by the knowledge that this is part of a process. And for each segment that I comment on for each part that I comment on in a JW broadcasting episode, I'll have watched it 3 or 4 times by the time you see me talking about it. So by the 3rd or 4th time, and you know exactly what your response is, it's easier to watch it because you know how you're going to dismantle it, and you're chomping at the bit to get at it, And
I think the fact that you help to expose these things, yes, it can be tough going to wade through the mountain of garbage that the society spews out, but you're doing it genuinely to help people, and as we know, there would be countless numbers who woke up because of some poignant rebuttal or information that you shared, and that helped them to realize they weren't alone. They weren't the only one that saw this as something's not right. You validated their concerns and their personal journeys. So you could quite legitimately say that you run the gauntlet to assist other people, and it pays off.
To me, it's like watching a scary film with someone next to me, as opposed to just watching it on my own. So I can only watch that content when you're commenting in between, because that takes the immenseness out of it for me.
I do kind of notice that though, because I've had a few people say I can only watch them when it's in the form of one of Lloyd's rebuttals, and that actually creates this strange dynamic where something can be said or something can happen on the JW broadcasting episode, which will only actually be talked about more broadly by the community once I've done my rebuttal. And it could have happened. The rebuttal could have gone out, let's say, at the beginning of the month. And let's say I do my rebuttal towards the end of the month, or maybe even into the following month. And then only then the people start talking about it. It's quite strange. In a way, I kind of wish that I was able to see people talking about it and then think, oh, I need to do this more quickly, But I can only do it at my pace, and sometimes my pace involves doing it maybe even the next month. It really does depend. Child indoctrination easily triggers me, says Eric Larson. Those propaganda videos are the absolute worst. I'm the same. I think that when it comes to the way children are being exploited and manipulated, few things get the hairs on the back of my neck to raise more effectively than that whole element. And obviously one of the worst offenders is Stephen Lett with his fascination with young ones. Thinking about it, I'm gonna take my rage out on this fly thinking of Stephen Lett's face.
I'm just happy it was a fly, Lloyd, because for a minute I thought it was Olivia.
Not beating a cat with a piece of paper.
Thank you.
But yeah, definitely child indoctrination. Rianne says that she actually watches the raw stuff because she wants to be prepared for when it hits my channel, which is fantastic. I'm happy for people to do that, and glad that people do that, because again, in a way, it makes things easier for me if people are already talking about it, and then I can realize what's there, and maybe it might make me do things a bit more quickly.
And it's probably good too, just so that we can never be accused of just adopting views that you might have shared, or that we've taken something out of context. So if people want to watch the live stuff that the Society spews out or read the material, we'd encourage them to do that. So then they can use their own cognitive processes to work out where they stand on it. Never can any of us be accused of manipulating a viewer's feelings or reactions. That's left up to each individual. And I'm sure, as you've often said, you're not seeking to make people adopt your views. You're just sharing your views, and what conclusion people come to after that is completely up to them.
Bob Oak says, I'm sure Watchtower worry about Lloyd watching it. I like to imagine Tony being triggered every time Lloyd is mentioned. I don't know how... it would be interesting, wouldn't it? Because I like to think of myself as Tony's biggest troll. And as such, I like to think that he's at least aware of my name. We have actually spoken on the phone, as many of you will know. Tony and I go way back.
Yeah, you used to work in the laundry, yeah.
But it would be interesting to know the extent to which, because, to know that when you present a JW broadcasting episode, let's say you're one of the helpers, it must slightly change the experience of hosting a JW broadcasting show if you're not just going to be addressing a doting audience hanging on your every word, but there is actually going to be at least one video on YouTube that will be seen by tens of thousands of people picking apart all of the worst parts of what you're saying. That must slightly change the experience, at least.
Yeah.
Knowing
Do you
that
think
you're
they're
going to be
aware of it?
scrutinized. I don't know.
I wonder, though.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd like them to be aware of it. It would give me great satisfaction if they were aware of it, but I
believe they
say
are.
definitively.
We
can't say definitively, though, can we, that they are aware of it?
No. But it's definitely true that they're used to surrounding themselves with sycophantic sort of people who hang off every single word that they say. So it's actually good to have pushback. We see it in every other field of life. We see politicians get pushback. We see media gets pushback. We see in the commercial world people get pushback or other points of view are presented. So it's good for an organisation. In fact, they should welcome people to give them feedback or rebuttals or whatever it is if they were genuinely honest, if they weren't trying to be manipulative or be the issuers of propaganda. They should welcome criticism or rebuttals, even if it's done in a fair and balanced way, as you try and do, they should welcome this to come from within their own ranks. And of course, that's probably one of the biggest problems that society has, is nobody can push back and say anything against the local congregation or against the material or the governing body without fear of consequences.
Yeah,
indeed. Julia Dasman says, morning, everyone. I have been assured, by the way, that Julia's dog is not dead. It's just lying on its back. Morning, everyone. Just arrived straight from the weird owl and leopard video torn between Drunk Tony and Dementia Tony. I think probably a bit of both. I think that there was more than just milk on Tony's cornflakes that morning, if I'm being completely honest. I just don't know how you can go on about what owls are thinking in front of a Bethel audience without at least some substance circulating through your body, to be honest.
Well, I can tell you, having been at Bethel for 5 years and often sat on the head table where the local branch committee members would do their morning speeches, you could tell when they would not be in the best frame of mind. Some mornings they might wake up a little bit tireder than usual, maybe not in the best state to be addressing the family. And sometimes their grumpiness would come through in the presentations, or their personal biases would come through. And I'm sure Tony's no different. He's just a human who might be waking up with a lot of bad sore heads the next day. And it would come out in the way he delivers his material. And he's not getting any younger. That's going to affect it too. Sometimes we'd sit around the table casting glances at each other thinking, did he really just say that? Is that really what the branch committee overseer just said?
I need to do another ex-Bethelites Tell-All video with you on it, Sasha, because we haven't properly heard your Bethel anecdotes yet. I think we were going to do one with you and Paul Grundy, weren't we? Because you've both been at Bethel.
We should do that. Oh, it's funny you say that, because I literally found just earlier this week some of my old material from Bethel, including a the telephone directory from one of the years I was there, all the
There we
names
go.
and everything on there. This was
There we
from
go.
97, but yeah, we've got, the only thing I haven't got is my dwelling together in Unity.
See, I've
booklet,
got
but-
mine, Sasha. I've got mine. You need to hold on to that one.
I know. I was too good. I gave it back, but I've got all these brochures and welcome to the branch office. But this even specific songs that were spewed out just for the title
Really?
of dedication. It's No, it'd be good if we can do a chat about that one day. But
We should. We should.
It's very interesting to see the governing body or the branch committee members in their normal state and to see how they present and then how they have to suddenly turn it on for the cameras or for the family. And
Another
Normal
thing that's
state.
interesting. Another thing that's interesting to see, or person who's interesting to see, is Arthur Webber, who joins us.
Good morning, everybody.
hey,
So-
Arthur.
Speculation is rife, Arthur, as to what you do in these strange periods when you're not on the lockdown live stream and ought to be. Dare we probe as to your antics before joining us at this late hour?
Yeah, it's a very late hour because I've actually fallen asleep.
Oh,
You were sleeping.
Yeah.
Were you sleeping under a tree by any chance?
No, I wasn't sleeping
Surveyed by an owl.
by an owl or by a leopard looking like a panther. Yeah.
but Arthur, your haircut looks lovely. Have you had it?
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's shorter. Have a look. Yeah.
Let's just zoom in there on
He needed it for his
Uh,
modelling shots for the front
Naomi
cover
is
of his
very
new
fond
album.
of.
Mhm.
So, Arthur, do you have
Yes.
a song?
No. But I could come up with one.
We've lost him.
Why not?
Am I the
They're
only
always
one?
your best ones.
No, we got him.
God,
No song. No song,
No,
Arthur.
me
no.
that's gone.
No.
Yeah, Lloyd we
But-
seem to have lost Lloyd, but
Yeah, we lost Lloyd. Where is Lloyd? Dear brothers and sisters, because our very own host, Lloyd, got lost by a certain bird catcher, or maybe
Tony found him.
went to the Chelmsford dedication program, because we've had we've had Sasha talk about the Sydney branch dedication. Maybe Lloyd has gotten
I'd say
to another
he,
dedication program, and he is pressing
Not sure what
the
happened
mute
there.
button in
I think
a
the
very
demons,
short
the
time.
demons are interfering, viewers, in today's lockdown live stream. And as a result, Sasha's face is now obscured by the lockdown live stream logo.
some would say that's an improvement.
Oh,
Oh, self-deprecation always works.
You got to get in first, don't you?
So, Arthur,
Yeah.
we were talking about the potential of you regaling us with song. Is that on the cards?
Yeah, we can. I was, pretty much impromptu actually, because
No, impromptu. You mean you've not spent days planning this?
no.
Do you have a life outside of this lockdown live stream?
Apparently not.
Wonderful. Anyway, let's get on with it.
think of songs. Can't think of
All right. I could do actually one of two things. One of the songs
It's just
was
not working for me.
it's not working for you, Lloyd, but it's working for everybody else. Because hopefully, if Sasha or Naomi can confirm that they hear me well.
Yep.
All right.
Yes, loud and clear.
this means that the viewers can also hear me, I can do one of two things. One of them is something that our viewer Barnabas Collins suggested in the last episode.
Ah, yes.
I can do that. Or I can do another song suggested by yesterday's video that Lloyd's put up. Let's see which one is more wanted.
Are we doing a poll or something? By the way, sorry, I'm trying to fix my internet.
Yeah,
problem.
actually, Lloyd. I was asking our viewers which song would they like to hear.
Okay.
One that's closer to the Pure Worship book, or the song that was suggested by
The comments to come through to as to which one you do.
Yeah,
How's
yeah.
it
Let's see
working?
whether we have comments, because actually I don't have Facebook open, so I can't look at the.
I think we'll go with the one from yesterday's.
Yesterday looks
stream.
like, yeah.
Let's keep it current.
Let's keep it current.
Or as Eric said, both.
Yeah.
Well, I can do both, so why not? Because another viewer suggested on one of the comments, "Hey, I was expecting two songs from Arthur." Okay, let's take one about Ezekiel.
All right.
Because the Pure Worship book, where we had the Sleeping Beauty under the Panther, was from the Pure Worship book, and that Pure Worship book is actually a book about the prophecy of Ezekiel. And there was a song, very old one and very, very popular one, about Ezekiel.
Ezekiel.
Yeah.
I can't
All
think
right.
of what. Do you know what it is?
No.
No.
He's got me here.
Yeah, and let's do like that.
Sorry about this, by the way. We're having some proper gremlins today.
That's okay.
I think it might be
still
my
working.
internet connection, which I've just hopefully fixed. So we'll see. Okay, so
There we go.
All right, Arthur. No pressure.
Why don't you swing down, sweet cherry stop and let me ride? Swing down on the cherry stop and let me ride. Rock me, Lord, come and easy. Well, I've got home on the other side. Why don't you swing down, sweet cherry stop and let me ride? Swing down, cherry stop and let me ride. Rock me, Lord, come and easy. Well, I've got home on the other side.
Swing, 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 swing.
Well. Ezekiel went down in the middle of a field and saw an angel working on a chariot wheel. Wasn't so particular about a chariot wheel, just wanted to see how a chariot feels. Why don't you swing down, sweet chariot, stop and let me ride? Swing down, sweet chariot, stop and let me ride. Rock me, Lord, come and easy. Well, I've got home on the other side.
Swing, 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 swing.
Ezekiel they got on board the chariot and went bumping down the road. So Zeke was so particular at the bumping up the road. Just wanna speed out the heavy load. Swing down, sweet chariot, stop and let me ride. Swing down, sweet chariot, stop and let me ride. Rock me, Lord, calm and easy. Well, I've got home on the other side. You know, got my body wanna shake in my hand. And I would know that would be the end. Rock me, Lord, come and easy. I've got home on the other side. Why don't you swing down, sweet cherry, stop and let me ride. Swing down, cherry, stop and let me ride. Rock me, Lord, come and easy. Well, I've got home on the other side.
Bravo, Arthur. That has to be my favorite song that you've done. That was really good.
Oh, really?
That was
Well
my favorite. Out of a long line of very memorable sing along with Arthur's. That was my favorite. Yeah. If there is going to be a compilation.
Arthur, did you do like an air rope? Did I see at one stage? I think, or whip.
Did you try to lasso an imaginary person?
Yeah,
Or...
actually, it was the cable of my invisible microphone.
Oh, I see. Because you don't have your mag light with you today.
No.
Okay, fair enough.
That was brilliant, Arthur. Really good. Nice.
Yeah,
one.
lots of favourable comments coming in. Mario Wario says if that would be a Kingdom melody, there would be at least some action in the Kingdom Hall.
That's true.
Janice Powell says takes courage, Arthur. I think that was a really good one, though. I don't think too much courage is required when you're knocking it out of the park in the way that Mr. Webber undoubtedly did just there.
It was high energy.
It was high energy in all the right ways. And Jazz Brookman says, bravo, Arthur. Annika says, very jolly. Mark Wetherill says, whoa, I'm ready to start speaking in tongues here. Gosh, having a profound effect on some members of the audience.
Hallelujah. Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord.
This is one of the most intense things I've ever seen in my life. You know, these are gushing responses here, viewers. Beetroot Soup says, laugh out loud, yay. And Eric Larson says, and that was impromptu.
Exactly.
That was like it had been rehearsed. Liplock No More says, I do not believe Arthur just woke up. Yeah, if you have literally just woken up, we want some of what you're having, Arthur. Because that's not what I was like this morning when I just woken up.
So without making this product placement or any commercial advertising, I have like this.
Yeah. Okay. That does make sense.
But I haven't had it since I opened my eyes this morning at 10:21 a.m. That's actually 15 minutes ago.
Rianne says, this makes me smile. Absolutely brilliant. 3 thumbs up. Erica says, very happy song. Liplock No More says, Arthur, cut a CD of your greatest hits. Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, it is possible in the future. Yeah.
Okay. Julia Dasmin, whose dog may or may not be still alive, says, off to work now. Enjoyed this morning. Take care and keep up the excellent work, everyone, on the lockdown. So yes, lots of nice comments coming through. Yeah, please do. And so we were talking earlier about where things are with coronavirus, and I was saying at the beginning of the show about how we are upgrading to YouTube for our next show. So unfortunately, we are beating a strategic withdrawal from Twitch, and so the next show will be on Facebook and YouTube. But there's inevitably... Well, here's the thing. I'd be interested in knowing what you guys think. I'm thinking about changing the name of the show, but what I don't want to do is change the name of the show and then need to change it back again to Coronavirus Lockdown Livestream if there's a second spike, you know? So I'm thinking about keeping this format as it is and just calling it the Bunker Livestream. But what's the cutoff? At what point do I make that decision, or do I keep the name? I'd be interested in the panel's thoughts, and I'd be interested in those of you watching. What do you think I should do in terms of the naming and all that kind of thing?
Well, the Bunker live stream, this new title that you suggested, Brother Evans, has a powerful impact, because actually the bunker is the solution, the arrangement of the congregation for surviving the apocalypse together.
Where's that mute button?
So we as a congregation...
Fortunately, we've lost Arthur's audio just as he was getting incredibly triggering. Anyway,
I think leave it up to what everybody drops in the comments. I'm sure everyone can drop a comment.
Sure.
See what they think. Because after all, it's for them.
Already a few comments coming in to the effect of, I like the Bunker live stream, says Paige. Bill says, I like the sound of Bunker live stream. Nasbo9 says, Bunker banter.
Like that.
Interesting. I think coronavirus live stream may not be locked down, but bunker. Okay. So yeah, I think I've kind of blindsided you all with that, but it's certainly something I will give a lot of thought to. Nesbo9 says, Lloyd, did you manage to find any of Tony's Croatian family? So, so again, if you were unfamiliar, I was on Pag for 10 days with my family. We did a series of videos, the Pag Diary, over on my Random Seeders channel. Please do check it out. Unashamedly plugging it for you there. But interestingly, Tony Morris's ancestors come from Pag. In fact, not just ancestors, but his granddad, Anton Skiterilic, emigrated to the United States from Pag. And so when we were there, we were trying to see if there was any possibility of finding information on Tony's family. That's still a possibility. It just didn't happen this time. We did actually go to one or two churches to try and ask about their christening records and that kind of thing, but there was just no one around. It was very strange. And it's also quite, you would think that that there would still be churches around on Pag that had been around in 1892, which I think is when Anton Skiterilic was born. But actually, that's not the case. Quite a few churches. We went to a couple of places where the church where there was supposed to be a church, and it was just no longer there. So quite a lot of time has passed on that island, and churches being knocked down and replaced, and all sorts going on. So, but we will continue to work on that, because I'm personally fascinated to know. To do Tony Morris's genealogy digging for him, because again, I like to think of myself as his number one troll, and I think it would or should wind him up no end to know that I know more about his ancestry than he does. So that's kind of where I'm going with it.
There's a spin-off TV show there, maybe in line with your segment, Naomi's Bible Box. We've got a spin-off show. It's going to be Who Do You Think You Are? It's going to be Governing Body episode. Yes. And, we trace back their lineage and introduce them to the skeletons in the closet that they don't want anybody knowing about.
Or another TV show. Think You're Smarter Than a Governing Body Member?
Oh.
A very lovely trivia show for hardcore witness kids about doctrines and practices of Jehovah's Witnesses.
Well, you know that Tony Morris is on record of saying in a talk at a convention that we're the thinkingest people on the planet.
He did say that, didn't he? What a bizarre thing to say. The thinkingest people on the planet. That's a real Trumpism, that, isn't it?
That is so good.
Sorry to offend.
So we could actually have Naomi pitch these lovely formats for JW Broadcasting.
I mean, I don't know why they don't do trivia shows on there and, quiz shows. Why not? You could go up against people. They're just not thinking very creatively.
Actually, perhaps we need to have a quiz on
Yes.
the lockdown live stream. It's just that it requires a little bit of preparation. So you can't just kind of click, with the segments. Obviously, Sasha prepares a poem or someone else's poem. And then
Or I
That's
don't
a low
want to
blow.
own to the fact that it was actually mine, but I don't want to own up to it in case.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Okay. Yeah, extra marks for
Plausible
that.
deniability, governing
I
body
see.
101.
I see. Anyway, with the current setup, not apart from those of you who maybe I should do some preparation for a change, because I don't really do that much preparation. I just literally switch everything on. But maybe I could prepare a segment where we just do a quiz. I'm just concerned that Arthur would win every single time because you have that kind of mind.
Definitely.
If we're going to have a Bible-based quiz, Naomi and I have got some material that we could use as a foundation. And if you want to have an organizational-based quiz, the facts and figures and history of the organization and dates and teachings, that would be...
Yeah, these can be submitted to the CSAC Bethel, to the branch office, and our branch committee coordinator in the person of Brother Lloyd Evans could compile these.
Fortunately, we've lost Arthur's audio just as he was being incredibly triggering there, viewers. So yeah, let's think about that. Let's quiz show Stump the Romanian.
That could be good.
Yeah, could be. So yeah, I'll give that some thoughts, and maybe in future shows we will be having a quiz. Who knows? And maybe a different name. We just don't know at this point. One thing is for sure, we are here to stay. I think the current kind of Saturday, Wednesday format works quite well, addresses a few different time zones. And what I will also do is keep the numbering, irrespective of whether we change the name or not. It's still going to have the same numbering so that people can check our back catalogue easily. Especially if they decide to compile a greatest hits of Arthur. So
Lloyd, having thought about it more, I think Bunker works.
Yeah.
Live stream, I think it does work. It's a good.
I think so.
And I was thinking, actually, if we have this episode number 30, if I'm not mistaken, why don't we do a second round of singing?
Oh, gee,
are you saying you want to sing again, Arthur?
Yeah, because I was thinking let's do that song that Barnabas suggested last time. We have the.
Are you familiar with the concept of quitting while you're ahead?
Well, keep that one up your sleeve, yeah. And I think it's got to be said, too, that as we know, these broadcasts are all about providing a little bit of levity and support and comfort and,
distraction.
Help. Yeah. And also some support for people who are going through rough times at the moment. And we're still getting a lot of emails and a lot of messages coming through from people who have been facing extra efforts from their still believing family members to try and get them back into the cult and get them back into the meetings. So if I may just share a couple of paragraphs of something that's kind of in line with Sherry's Comfort Corner, but it's some practical suggestions again on how to combat the situation where people are trying to pressure you to go back into the organ.
If you said it's kind of in line with Sherry's Comfort Corner, let's do this properly.
Oh, I wouldn't presume to.
Sherry's Comfort Corner.
Ooh, all right. I let down this corner, but this carried on with something we were talking about in one of our previous episodes about the appropriateness of drawing boundaries and making sure that people recognize that we have a right to determine our own boundaries. we mentioned some of this before, but this says that we can think of setting boundaries as fortifying our relationships with others rather than building walls to keep people out. So boundaries can be a good thing, not a bad thing. And boundaries do another important thing. They can clue us in on behaviour that might be harmful. So think about the front door to your home or apartment. If someone breaks it down, you know there's a problem. Oftentimes we push our instincts aside because we are convinced they are unreasonable, or we have been taught not to trust them. But if something feels consistently uncomfortable or unsafe, it is a red flag that abuse might be a problem. If someone is repeatedly pushing or violating our boundaries, listen to our gut. And some of the red flags on boundaries that might be overstepped, and this can come from well-meaning family members trying to push us back into the religion, can be that they have no filter or regard as to how you feel about the comments that they are sharing. They don't actually think about your thoughts. They're just convinced in a one-way narrative, telling you about their thoughts. A dominated, one-sided conversation, or expecting that you will jump as soon as they issue a call or a direction or an edict. So it says learning the difference is a critical part of setting and communicating boundaries. We can overshare things at times, but we're likely of a little bit of harmless, too much information now and then. But if you suspect that family members are oversharing or overstepping boundaries, be alert that you have a right to draw a line in the sand, that they don't have a right to trample over your boundaries. And so the important thing to listen to our gut. It concluded by saying our instincts can help us determine when someone is violating our boundaries or when we might need to set boundaries up. So if people are messaging us, if people are demanding that we go back to the meetings, we have a right to say, I don't have to engage in this conversation. I appreciate you mean well, but thank you, but no thank you. The conversation ends now. Check in with our body if we're getting heart rate increase, sweating, tightness in the chest, stomach, throat. Our gut's telling us something, that this is not a comfortable situation and you're under no obligation to remain in that situation. Be determined to know that you have the self-esteem and the right to set boundaries regardless of who it is that's trying to overstep them.
Lloyd is muted.
Lloyd, you're muted.
I said, sorry, I said very nice. I hope you don't mind if I eat a cookie because I haven't had my breakfast yet. So
no, please.
So that was
always
wonderful.
got to have those reminders about the importance of setting personal boundaries.
Because I know that one of our dear friends who's following and has dropped a comment has had a situation like that where their family member has completely overstepped their right to make their own decision for them and their little child. And so, it's so important to recognise that we alone have the right to determine what we choose to do in our life. And nobody, no matter how well-meaning, can impose themselves unnecessarily into our situation, into our life, specifically when it comes to matters of religion and faith.
Rianne says, guess who contacted my family when I had to go to hospital? Rianne basically has recently been struggling with COVID-19. I think has recovered. See what happens if you leave the organisation, COVID-19, as a punishment.
Did they say that? Oh my goodness. That's terrible.
Apparently.
That's gross.
Wow.
That's gross.
It is.
So sorry.
Simon Stone says that's sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, it's ridiculous.
So yeah,
it's jumping the shark from the comfort corner intro in terms of sickness when you.
Yeah, it is. But I think what's really interesting point about that, Sasha, is I remember when I left, I thought, God, isn't shunning such a horrible, hurtful thing to do? And how could anyone be shunning anyone else, just not talk to them? And so I never thought about, it took me a while to think about using that sort of strategy in dealing with putting up your own boundaries. So in my head, I decided not to talk to people who would not talk to me. So not that I was sort of shunning them, but why put myself in a situation where I was talking to someone who wasn't going to respond or who was going to be very cold, and I would never do that normally. So that was me putting up my own boundary, even though it looks and smells like shunning. I was doing something similar, but I believe to protect myself as opposed to hurt others, I suppose.
That's a good point.
Well, there's a difference between shunning for your own, shunning because it's a conscious decision that you've made for the benefit of your own mental health, and actually being ordered to shun someone who you wouldn't ordinarily wish to shun.
Yeah,
that's the difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think
And
sometimes
people
you swing so far the other way, saying that's such a horrible thing, I'll never do that, that you kind of go, okay, anyone can have a hit at me. But no, like we still have that.
Yeah, you should never feel as though you need to entertain toxic people in your life. Otherwise, you're shunning and you're just as bad as Watchtower. That is really not how it works. You do get to set your own boundaries. You do get to decide not to have interaction with toxic people. The difference is with Watchtower very clearly that Watchtower is an organization that is mandating shunning for people who wouldn't otherwise shun, and doing it across the board arbitrarily. Everyone who doesn't agree with our ideology must be shunned.
Yeah. And if people show you their true colours, believe them. So if these ones have been manipulated to the point where they are shunning and they're acting in a toxic manner, believe them, because until they wake up and realise, and until they make a conscious decision that their behaviour is inappropriate, they're still carrying out that wrong conduct. And we don't have to try and force ourselves back onto them to try and ingratiate a relationship. If they show their true colours and they choose to ignore, believe them.
Yep. And I think Lloyd said it best when he swatted that fly, which is how I feel about Rianne's family saying such a disgusting thing. Yeah. So you just want to just fuck off then. There you go.
Yes.
Some will think that this is all kind of haphazard and random, but it was intentional because I wanted to introduce that metaphor to the conversation. So thanks for picking up on that, Naomi. Rianne says, they called my husband the moment he came home from taking me to the hospital. So really awful behavior there. My husband was so mad, and our kids. Yeah, you just simply don't say, oh, this is punishment from God. If it is punishment from God, what about if you actually watch the coronavirus reports on, I think they call them governing body reports, don't they?
Yes.
They admit that there have been Jehovah's Witnesses who've died. So, what about them? Are they being punished? Indeed. So
no, actually, that's a test of loyalty.
Time and unforeseen occurrence.
Right.
Well done for having brevity there, Arthur, before I could do anything. I think we'll draw things to a close there, but please, viewers, do look out for the show on YouTube and Facebook on Saturday. Look, I'm very much interested in seeing how the show will translate to YouTube because, for example, currently we have 51. And I think it's fantastic that we've been getting in excess of 100 on some of the shows, considering it's just on Facebook and Twitch. I'm kind of bracing myself for how many people will be following along once it goes on the YouTube channel. But we'll take it as it comes. Don't forget that if you want to send in a voicemail, you can do so using this address, speakpipe.com/Cedars. We haven't had a voicemail in a while, but, fair enough. And we've also have an address here for if you want to send in a video message as an unlisted YouTube video. We will obviously be delighted to play that and answer any questions that you have. Arthur is itching to sing us out.
Do it.
It's Animaniacs again, I think.
Yes, it's the second song that was... Okay. Here goes! Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Indianapolis, Indiana, and Columbus is the capital of Ohio. There's Montgomery, Alabama, San Antonio, Montana, the Denver, Colorado, on the Boise, Idaho. Texas is Austin, then we go north to Massachusetts, Boston, Albany, New York, Tallahassee, Florida, and Washington, D.C., Santa Fe, New Mexico, and Nashville, Tennessee. Elvis is there, if you believe the tabloids. Trent is in New Jersey, South Possessions in Missouri. You've got Richmond in Virginia, South Dakota has Pierre, Harrisburg in Pennsylvania, and Augusta's up in Maine. And there's Providence, Rhode Island, next to Dover, Delaware. Concord, New Hampshire, just a quick jaunt to Montpelier, which is up in Vermont. Hartford in Connecticut, so pretty in the fall. And Kansas has Topeka, Maine State is at St. Paul, but not St. George, St. John, or St. Ringo. Juneau's in Alaska, and there's Lincoln in Nebraska, and it's Raleigh out in North Carolina, and then there's Madison, Wisconsin, and Olympia in Washington, Phoenix, Arizona, and Lansing, Michigan. Here's Honolulu, Hawaii's the joy, Jackson, Mississippi, and Springfield, Illinois, South Carolina, and Columbia on the way, and Annapolis in Maryland on Chesapeake Bay. They have wonderful clam chowder. Shire's in Wyoming, and perhaps you make your home in Salt Lake City out in Utah where the buffalo roam. Atlanta's down in Georgia, and there's Bismarck, North Dakota, and you can live in Frankfurt and your old Kentucky home. Salem in Oregon, from there we join Little Rock in Arkansas, Iowa, Des Moines, Sacramento, California, Oklahoma, and the city, Charleston, West Virginia, and Nevada, Carson City. That's all the capitals there are.
Fantastic. Thank you for singing us out there, Arthur. Lovely to get a few final comments through. Again, we bid a fond farewell to Twitch. You've been most gracious letting us live stream on your services, on your platform, but it's time to move on to a bigger audience. We go to the John Cedars channel, where many of you will be watching this after the fact, but you will be able to watch it live from Saturday. Arthur, what are the times?
Well, on Saturday, we are having the show at 5 p.m. Central, which means that's 3 p.m. Universal Standard Time. That's
1 a.m. Sydney time.
Yeah, 1 a.m. Sydney time, and
no bitterness there, Sasha.
No.
10 a.m. New York time, if I'm not mistaken, and 7 a.m. In Pacific.
We started Arthur's appearance with him being complimented on his hair. Rianne is now saying that he's in excellent shape. I fear Arthur's head will explode at some point if we don't end the show immediately. So, viewers, it's been absolutely wonderful having you all here. A wonderful panel, wonderful banter. Please do remember to stay safe, stay positive, and we will see you in the next show. Take care.
Bye.